Yes, we are here, and it is one of the best shows on the internet on the best day of the week, Wednesday. Masculine Geek number 129. This is the Fireside Chats, random shit, tabletop, and whatever else we can think of and fit into an hour, hour and a half. So welcome everyone. Welcome TJ and welcome Robert. Oh, and yeah, you're just getting our voice tonight. Like it or don't. So how you guys doing?
Doing well on my end, and you gentlemen?
Not bad. And Competent Man says, and we're waiting. Hey, is Cappy really on vacation now? Technically, yes. I spoke to him on the phone today. He called me up at work. He's like, hey, what's up, Dick Knob? Or some such bullshit. And I asked him that question if he was on vacation. He is. He's taking a break. But he still has work to do. So it's not... when Aaron says he's taking a break, that's just to get you guys riled up and to continue to follow him more and repost his shit, and for me to give him shit online. He never really Aaron does not take a break and never will. That's his bread and butter, and that's his life force. His asshole consulting and calling all you people pudwax.
Yeah, he'll shave off a couple of years of his life. It means he gains an extra couple bucks.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to have priorities, and those are Cappies.
Yes. So TJ, how you doing? How you holding up?
I'd prefer. I mean, it's not 112 degrees like it was a couple weeks ago, but I mean, I'm just. This is my least favorite time of the year in this part of the state because it's so hot. You really can't do a whole lot without, and it depends on what type of how your body responds to heat. I do fine in cold weather, but if I'm in hot weather, I got to bring tons of water around with me because I just start dehydrating really quickly. And also the area I live in is where everybody in the world wants to go hiking. So on weekends, not only is it 98 degrees outside, but also the roads are clogged up and there's not a whole lot of areas to go. So I can do stuff on my property. I can do stuff obviously on my computer, but I'm a high energy guy. Like I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning and went and hiked up a mountain, came back down, went and worked out in the gym for an hour or so. And I'm still kind of bouncing off walls. So that's the other problem with the hot weather, but.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I'll, and also while I was at work, not only did I get a phone call from Mr. Clary, I got a text from a buddy of mine. He's a buddy that I game with around the table. He sometimes gets in the way to people on Twitter that he follows, this ridiculous social justice warrior, progressive Marxist bullshit. So he sends me a screenshot of I'm not going to I won't name the Twitter handles, but some dude named Lee, he says, and he's right. I'll preface this by saying this statement I'm about to read is correct. Here's the problem with a lot of tabletop role-playing game companies, TTRPG, and indie developers these days. They aren't professional enough. They don't know how to advertise their products effectively. They politicize their advertising and kill 50% of their potential sales. Keep failing. Thumbs up. So some spurg named Sam, he chimes in and he says, dude, and in quotes, unprofessional is such a dog whistle. The people who make these games, myself included, know exactly what we're doing with advertising. You're claiming that a product is bad just because you aren't the target audience. Like a vegan being annoyed at hamburger commercials. And some other one pipes in. And bear in mind, these are all avatars. No one shows their actual face because they're probably idiots. So, a dog whistle for what exactly? Such an odd thing to say. Personally, if folks want to exclude the punk rock DIY lifestyle, more power to them. I'm that way myself under certain circumstances. But suggesting that this aesthetic won't scare away potential customers is naive. So Sam follows up. Let's straighten my glasses and my tie, and I'm the smartest man in the room. I don't have the time to go into the whole history, but people of color and queer/LGBT people are routinely called unprofessional just because of who they are. And he cites this article from something called ssir.org. The title of the article is Bias of Professionalism Standards, SSIR. And here's the tagline. Professionalism has become coded language for white favoritism in workplace practices that more often than, and then I can't see the rest of it and I didn't click on it because it's bullshit. So basically what it boils down to is professionalism is now equated to white favoritism and white supremacy and whatnot in the workplace and having to do with anything remotely supposed to be professional and actually get your product out there. So apparently there are no standards because everything is nothing and nothing is everything. So you shouldn't have any kind of standard in your choice of what you're going to buy or not buy. So that was my morning today. That was interesting. Any thoughts on that?
At some point, people, I mean, we're going to go, guys, when this is all said and done, having indoor plumbing, sanitary water and electricity are going to be considered white supremacy. So just be prepared. Like, build your own grid, get your own outhouse, and learn how to sanitize your own water. Because no joke, when these people talk about this stuff, what they're talking about is having standards. And this is a great way for them to avoid having to live up to any kind of meaningful standard. It's like I would throw it back on them. It's like, so what kind of discipline does it take to do what you do in terms of your behavior, your conduct? Because professionalism means that for example, you don't use certain choice words when you're working with a client or a customer or in the workplace, right? You have a sense of formality, whereas apparently they want to pretend like you guys are all part of one big orgy fest or something like that. Like or like you're just best buddy. Like this cat, I have no idea. I just think it's hilarious that they're probably just trying to come up with an excuse for why no one wants to buy their products.
Well, there's that too. I mean, there's also, I think, an inherent laziness to some of these people.
Well, there's been several things that have come out recently, supposedly from academic institutions and the like, that, being on time is a symbol of whiteness, which, is used to try and attack white people for showing up on time for work by other whites who somehow or another are protecting people who aren't white by saying anyone who isn't white is basically lazy and incapable of showing up on time for things, which you and I think all of us here know several people that we've either worked with or have as family members who are never on time for anything, and probably will not be on time for their own funerals, while there are other people who don't look anything like any of us who you can always count on to show up on the days they're supposed to and be on time. So it is very much part and parcel with some of the things TJ was saying, is that it's a purposeful, deliberate attack on standards and on reason, because those things don't fit my emotional narrative or my victimhood status or whatever other excuse is needed from certain talking heads, especially on the interwebs. And
yeah, I wanted to throw something out that just occurred to me, because I've talked on my own podcast about, I don't have a term for it, but I call it kind of a real life Voight comp test for people who've enjoyed Blade Runner. And the whole point of these questions, or at least these observations, are intended to gauge in the film, Blade Runner, the Voight comp test is to determine whether someone's a replicant or a human. You ask them very weird questions that are designed to elicit certain emotions, and then this machine scans their eyes to see how they respond. Anyways, for me, I look at what someone claims is reality, and then look at some of the stuff that they talk about. So if you are a victim of oppression, you focus on very specific things that you are trying to fix. You compromise on most things. You overlook most things. You just say, hey, like this kind of stuff. When you're oppressed, you don't complain about how showing up on time or being expected to show up on time is oppressive.
Well, if you're oppressed, you don't have room to. You actually can't complain. You'll be beaten.
Right, and also, well, that's another thing. People who are oppressed, they plead, they ask, they beg, they beseech. They don't demand, and they don't assert themselves, because asserting yourself when you're a victim doesn't end.
That brings retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Right, brings retribution. So this is not how people who are genuinely oppressed look like. This is what people who are genuinely privileged and spoiled look like.
Well, it's
the luxury of being able to complain. Yeah,
it's unearned entitlement. It's completely unearned entitlement.
These people are so entitled. They think that having to show up on time is oppressive. It's like they just think everything should be handed to them on a silver platter, and if it's not, and people need to buy my product, even though it's crappy, and I shouldn't have to be able to put any work into it. And woe is me. I have to work so hard at just being who I am. It's like, no, you're not. You're just lazy.
It's funny. It's funny. You say that. I had a friend of mine back in the mid to late 90s, and he was half joking. He would laugh. He'd say, "You know what? It's hard enough being me. The government should just pay me for being me." And he was kind of joking, but and at the same time not. And I see that. I mean, no one's coming out and saying that in so many words, but I see that
there's some are. That's the whole thing behind the basic universal income.
Well, I'm not. What I'm saying is, I'm not talking to someone to their face and they're saying that because I would say, "Look, you're an asshole, and this is the reasons why you're wrong." And I would lay out. Yeah, exactly. I'd be like checking you into the masculine geek mental asylum. But I know there are people out there, and this is the behavior they're eliciting. And yeah, you're right. You're right, Robert. There are people that are out there that want that, and they think that just by nature, by dint of them being a human being, that they should be taken care of by the government.
Right.
And the government gets its resources from where? People who work. So when they're not printing up money.
Oh yeah, like they are now. But yeah, and they can't. I know a lot of this, can go back to put mom in charge of everything, and everything's done like mommy does it. So everybody gets the same scoop of mashed potatoes at dinner time. And it doesn't matter that you worked harder than your brother, or you're a growing boy and need a little bit more food than your brother. Everybody gets the same thing because mommy loves everybody equally. And, it's so there's definitely a lot of that going on, but I'm just glad that our ancestors didn't just sit back on their tails and think, I deserve something. So I'm just going to sit here and wait till I get what I deserve, because, well, we would have gone extinct a long time ago. It's as simple as that. We're not still here on this planet. Homo sapiens sapien is not still roaming the face of the earth because it was easy. We're doing it because it was hard, and we rose to the challenge, which meant fighting other Homo sapiens sapiens. It also meant fighting other things around us, some of which were far better hunters than we were one-on-one, but we learned how to build things to compensate for our lack of smilodon tusk and long, sharp claws and pointy teeth, and learning to, the whole reason men today, even the way we communicate with each other, stems back to the way our ancestors did. We can do things silently.
We prefer to, in some instances, we prefer to do things silently.
Yeah. And that's, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And that's not a bad thing.
No, well, the problem is it's not because women don't comport themselves and do this, then it's seen as, all right, well, they're the yardstick by which we're measured.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, well,
most certainly
they're not doing it, so there must be something wrong with us. No, sit down and shut the fuck up and do the job.
I mean, that's part of the big reason. And I remember my oldest son, who's in his 30s now, I can remember being
Holy
called
shit.
to his elementary school, and his teacher and one of the counselors wanted to talk to us about my oldest son. And so I'm there with my ex-wife now. We were married at the time, and they're talking to us. And the bottom line was they wanted us to put our oldest son on Ritalin or some other thing. And I'm like, well, is he acting out? No. Is he misbehaving? Well, no. They couldn't give us any reasons why, other than the fact
too much energy. Normal energy.
He was a little bored in his studies because, as any of us know, with modern American education, it's crap. So, he would get bored, he would get daydreaming. And well, since, recess isn't like it was when I was in school, where we got to run around on the playground like idiots for, a half hour, 45 minutes.
There was a reason for that. Yeah. So you could focus in the classroom when you came back.
Right. So the answer to all that was to medicate the kid, to medicate the little boys. So we end up getting a generation of little boys that, instead of learning how to focus and harness themselves and control themselves and function, we doped them up. Well, that works great in Brave New World or THX 1138, or, pick your dystopian sci-fi future, where, one pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small. And, the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. So it's, hopefully we don't get a copyright strike on that. I didn't actually sing it.
We're not monetized anyway. So.
Oh, okay. But bottom line is that was the answer, and that was the answer. And this was, of course, a female counselor at the school and a female elementary school, because there were only a couple of male at my elementary school, even when my oldest boy was going there, one of whom, not only was he like a 6th grade social studies teacher, he was also coach of the 6th grade boys basketball team and was a former gym coach there. So, and the other guy was a principal. So, I mean, there were, that was the bastion of women. And men often in those positions got looked upon as if, oh, so you like little kids, do you? What's wrong with you? The guy was a gym coach, and a pretty cool gym coach too, because he eventually transferred over to the junior high, where I played basketball for him, and also took me to a couple college basketball games, me and some of the other guys on the team. So yeah, a very cool dude who happened to be a really decent role model for a bunch of young boys. Gee, imagine that, role models for little boys to teach them how to be men. I know, crazy.
Seriously.
No, but yeah, I mean, all of this ties into politics. All of this ties into women. All of this ties into Marxism, surprisingly enough, and all of it ties into a sense of entitlement from a generation of kids that got trophies for being winners just simply because they were on the team. And of course, making the team means your daddy, or mommy, pays the fee to be on the team, and you're on the team because, actually having any athletic ability on certain teams is, that's verboten now, because, that would require
everyone's standard. The same. And if you exclude somebody, you're going to hurt their feelings.
Right. So that's what we're dealing with. So it's like anything else, garbage in gets garbage out. And so now we're dealing with the garbage out, in that you've got all these young folk going into different industries and, having plague those industries like locusts, in this case, gaming. So, all right. So you're saying that the only products you make are for trans, non-binary, horsey identifying Martians who wear GIMP suits and have a wheelchair fetish. And so if I think your game's not marketed well, it was never marketed to me anyway. It's like, well, no, I wasn't talking about the fact that you had a crap product. We were just saying that in general, there's a wide open market out there and you're not marketing to it. But heaven forbid the Gore RPG. Vince, you have the game. I have the game. There are other people we know who have the game. I don't remember seeing any marketing for it.
No.
Did you, or did you find it by accident?
I found it completely by accident.
Okay.
And then any supplements later, I had to purchase myself, later on the internet.
Yeah. So I don't remember seeing any advertising for it. Now, that's something as a game, as a potential system we might be interested in. As a setting, we were definitely interested in. But we saw no advertising. Why was that? Well, in this case, I could understand if part of it was, well, we're kind of keeping it on the down low because as soon as someone sees it, it's going to be offensive to someone and they're going to try and shut us down.
Yeah. Which
isn't necessarily a good enough excuse to guys like you and I, but I will accept that could be someone's reasoning. But the point is, the product should have been advertised in some way, shape, or form. And in the case of some of these people, I know they don't think they've got the money to do it, and it's hard.
It was advertised. It was advertised over in Europe, just because they're a little, as far as that. Yeah, that content is concerned, they're light years ahead of the United States as far as any kind of aesthetic towards that sort of genre.
Oh yeah,
it's a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing.
Well, the German RPG Das Schwarze Auge, one of the supplements to the current 5th edition, basically the literal translation is like Ways of Association, but it is basically the sex in D&D book that Phil and Trixie were promising in the back of Dragon magazine for almost a decade. Yeah, right. And it literally is. It is an RPG supplement for the main game that deals with things like brothels and one of the gods in that setting, who's a goddess of love, and all kinds of different aspects of human sexuality. There's been a supplement novel for it. There was a supplement religious tome connected to that love goddess called the Yasmina's Raja Sutra. Raya is the goddess of love in the game setting. Yasmina is a character or an NPC from that setting, and this is her Raja Sutra, which is her book of sexual positions and stuff. Not the play on that, and Karma Sutra is intentional. And here this is a quote unquote clerical religious text supplement to the game, and it deals with sex and sexuality. And a German RPG did this for a real game, and it's a German RPG that is more popular than D&D or Pathfinder in Germany and in several other parts of Europe. So I can completely understand that. But there are guys who make games, who spend the money to go to things like Gen Con and Origin, and apparently they're not as offensive as TSR and Ernie Gygax, who wants to make fantasy games that are fantasy.
Why don't we have John Norman on?
Oh, Jesus. I hope I am on for that show.
You'll be on for that show, don't worry.
But no, it's so, it's not cheap to go to these cons. It's not cheap to buy a table at these cons. I mean, Gen Con in particular, I feel less sexually violated by the TSA than
Right.
I do dealing with some of the business aspects of purchasing.
What are
stuff from Gen Con.
what are they charging for a dealer's table now?
I am not sure because of everything last year. They've changed it, but
I know PAX. I'm not sure what they call it. The one they have over here now in Philadelphia that goes off in December.
Mhm.
I think they were charging $500 a table per day, which I guess isn't too bad, but still, I mean, if you're an indie game developer and trying to sell your product, that's going to eat up most, unless you're really selling all of your product and your price point is high. You're basically you're there for exposure, obviously, and marketing, and to get your face out there and to network and whatnot and all that happy bullshit. But as far as making money, the cost of your dealer table is going to eat up most of your profit.
Yeah, and obviously the price is different for whether or not you're like in the artist area or what have you. So I'm trying to see if I could find real quick if they've got it listed.
That's why the days of the small convention need to return.
Yeah, they do. But a prime example of flaws with some of the smaller conventions. We have a local sci-fi con here in Indianapolis that happens every 4th of July weekend called In Conjunction. Okay.
Cool.
It's put on by a group called the Circle of Janus, which
cool.
I have over several years had different names for, including Circle of Anus and Circling Each Other's Anus. And there's reasons for that. I have, but anyway, if you go to some recent pictures of the convention, you will find a picture of, a room with just a handful of people in it, all of them older, all of them morbidly obese, or most of them morbidly obese, and about 75% women to 25% men. And there's absolutely not much of anything of interest guest wise, and even in the literary aspect, which with a lot of these smaller conventions, they used to be more literary focused than the shows, but that has ebbed and flowed over time. But anyway, this last year they had earlier, just a couple of weeks ago, they held the convention 4th of July weekend. And one of the policies they had for this year is whether you are vaccinated or not, if anyone at any time asks you to put on a mask while talking to them, you must do so. So if you were talking to a dealer and they say, hey, I want you to have a mask on at my table. If you're talking to someone in the hallway, hey, I want you to put a mask, you have to do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you don't do it and they report you, you can be kicked out of the convention. So here's a small convention that I would say is probably the same people that are showing up for it are mostly the same people putting it on. And this is their policy. And I'm like, I am sorry. I'm just, no, I don't take, if I know going in that something's a rule, that's one thing. And that's for me to decide whether or not I want to do business there.
You're either going to be there or not. Yeah.
But that is such an arbitrary rule that anyone who wants to be a douche nozzle can just arbitrarily say that just to have,
just to be a dick.
Yeah. Or you can call them out. Hey, this person's just trying to be a dick. They, it's like, so it's not even worth going to. And that's sad because I can remember when that was a go-to convention. I even helped run anime at that convention at one point in time.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. Way back cool. I was involved in one of the earliest anime clubs here in the state and ran one for quite a few years. And
nice.
But anyway, that back in the day that got you a pat on your back from someone who actually knew what you were talking about and, and pity, because it's like, oh, that means you spend a lot of your own time and money helping other people acquire anime tapes and a lot of work and very few perks. And it's like, yeah, you do it because you love it. You do it because you believe in the hobby or whatever. I mean, which is what fandom's supposed to be. the whole idea of being a fan is being a fanatic. And I understand that, although I have trouble being fanatical about much of anything because it's just in my nature to be more in control than that. But obviously, looking around my room, I'm obviously not in control of my wallet when it comes to purchasing toys and books. So
you choose. The thing is, you choose your addiction.
Yeah, exactly.
And your obsession, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're aware and you're in control. So
right. Well, and it's, I actually have a house to store my stuff in. I'm not living on the streets and wondering how, no electricity or anything because, I just had to buy that vintage Mego Mighty Isis action figure. And I just, but no, there's definitely some wisdom to Aaron's more Spartan way of doing things. And I definitely respect that. But I'm getting to a point where it's like, okay, how much more do I want before the times ends, and how much more do I want of something else like traveling and stuff like that? So, but anyway, yeah, the whole idea is you do it because you love it. You do it because it's fun. You didn't get together with your buddies playing Dungeons and Dragons because it was work. You didn't do it because you felt obligated to. You did it because it was fun. It was fun. No
one told you, well, because of the color of your skin, you need to go over there and fill some kind of fucking quota. Go over there and play that fucking game now.
No.
Peasant.
No, not at all. You did it because they were your friends and it was fun rolling dice, killing orcs, and busting balls. Right? I mean, that's the whole reason you do it. And I tell you what, most of my original gaming group were guys. We weren't all white by any stretch of the imagination. We had a lot of different ethnic groups from a lot of different places, but we were bros. We were friends. We were compadres. We watched the same movies. We listened to the same music. The fact that one of us had more melanin in their skin than the other, the fact that one of them's father came from like Belize, and one of the others family had been here for 200 years, that none of that mattered. What mattered was we all loved the game. The game was the thing. Yeah. And we all had the same pop culture references because we were watching
the same shit. Yeah.
We were watching the same shit. We were listening to the same songs. We had similar life experiences, some better than others, some worse than others. But we were a group. That was our tribe. And it was a tribe that we built, that we assembled. We were drawn to each other. A couple of us had familial ties. I didn't, but one of my best friends in the group was cousins to one of the other guys in the group who was also a dear friend of mine. I was even best man at his wedding. And, that was the thing. We were our group because of that. And the thing is, if someone else we knew who wasn't a dick wanted to play, we'd have been happy to have them.
Exactly.
Male, female, straight, whatever. It didn't care. To us, what mattered was, are you a dick?
Were you serious about playing? I mean, were you there because you were, you wanted to enjoy the group? You liked and were interested about D&D,
right?
And you wanted to fucking play the game.
Yeah. So, the personality was more important than anything else. Now, admittedly, there are some people I like that I could never game with because the chemistry would be off in the game. And there is a definite aspect of chemistry to a gaming session.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is, it's like to be friends and to hang out and, listen to MTV, drink Dr. Pepper, and eat
back when MTV was all about music. Yes.
Yeah. So you've got rock pop music from early 1980s playing in the background. You're eating pizza and drinking Dr. Pepper until you're sick,
fucking Cool Ranch Doritos.
Yeah, and and not sleeping for an entire weekend.
Those were the days.
Yeah, and then spending all week at school counting down
and
till
talking
you did
about
it
it until you
again.
can play again. Exactly, and then writing up in your campaign journal and shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And making plans and passing notes in the
original text message.
Well, yeah, and we use the Dwarven and Elven runes and script in the Lord of the Rings books as our language that we wrote in. That way, if a teacher absconded with one of our notes, they could never read
idea
it.
What we were talking about. Yeah.
And it was real time. The stuff Jethro talks about as far as, you know, what your characters are doing when they're not actively exploring. We were doing that. We were writing that stuff up. We were either going to our liege lords, we were going to a more powerful mage, we were hanging out at a thieves guild. You're
training. You actually had to do your character training to level up the character.
Right. And sometimes you had to do interviews because you had to find new hireling or new henchmen, you know, and or maybe get new followers, depending on, you know, what class you were and how high your charisma was. You know, so yeah, there was the game was everything. And those were golden times, because at that point in time in your youth, you can do that. Now the games aren't everything. The games are a mode or medium to put in modern politics, modern postmodern theology or anti-theology, pseudo-sexual social things. It's just none of it, you know, the whole, the game is, you know, somewhere down the road in importance to everything else that you're trying to funnel into it, as opposed to being the thing itself. And you know, that's a shame, you know. But
yes, it is. That's the direction it's been heading in for the past well, it's been going for a while, but I'd say it's really ramped up and been in your face the past decade.
Well, when I bought the first new D&D 3.0 player's handbook and I'm reading through it, I legitimately, the things I thought were, I know this says it's D&D, but it is so completely different. It's a completely different game. It's not D&D. So I'm having trouble locking that into my brain, as opposed to just, this is a totally new and different game and you either can play it or not if you want. And the other thing was,
fuck you, Nick.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, I felt like I wasn't the target audience for the game, because even if you look at the old like red basic books, you know, they talked about male players and female players and he and she and so on and so forth. 3.0 seemed to be all she does this, she does that.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
And it was very much that messaging of, you know, this is the gender, and the gender is female. And I don't mean in the language use of gender, which is how I learned it. Sex, male and female is sex. What is your sex, male or female? Gender applies to language, you know, he, she, it, der, die, das, you know, that. But now it's like, no one uses sex. They use gender for sex. And it's like, but those were different words and had different meanings, but all that's changed now, just like the meaning of all other words, like going back to being on time or being professional. That's all coded language. It's like, in what Orwellian nightmare is it coded language? Because that's the only place that it's coded language.
I think that what this has done, which is really interesting. When I was in college, I remember reading for the first time about electronic books or ebooks, Kindle. Amazon was introducing that stuff, which I found really fascinating. I have no idea who Marceau.
Who's
that?
It's a comedian and actor.
Yeah, I'm very famous mime.
Yeah.
So he's making TJ seem like I'm not. I'm kind of losing.
Well, you remember
you're not
being brief.
Yeah.
Robert was
interrupting.
Robert was, and that was
Okay,
it's fine because he was telling
Yeah,
stories. He was not
but
brief.
but this is the context in which it's going to make my comments going to make sense. Is what this has done is it's disproven a lot of people whose projections or prophecies or belief was that ebooks were going to make physical books obsolete. And the reason for that is because physical books cannot be changed, and they are printed at a certain specific time. They have a stamp of a certain date. So if you have a physical book, for example, I have a 1980 Webster dictionary, the definitions do not change. Whereas the definitions of stuff online, the digital can be changed overnight or instantaneously, but physical stuff cannot be changed unless the government wants to, somebody wants to come to your house and literally change manually everything in your books. So I think that's been the interesting thing as far as this whole Orwellian nightmare assault on the language is it's only underscored the importance of old physical books. Because they're proof of a lot of contradictions. Like someone will say, well, this is what racism means. This is what this means. And then you go back to a dictionary from the 1980s and say, well, that's actually not what it says here. And so they have to admit that the definition changed. Well, it's like, okay, if the definition changed, then why don't I get to just change the definition to what I want it to mean? Where nothing, whatever definition, as long as it doesn't apply to me, that's whatever the definition is.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of the problem with all the digital media and like the streaming services and things like that. Disney doesn't want this scene in one of its movies or one of the movies it's acquired, and run it through the computer, change it, and voila, that scene no longer exists.
Right.
That moment no longer exists.
Or someone says, I don't like the content of your book, delete.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as easy as that.
Right. And another example is when, this is what was kind of sticking to the geek stuff, is that I think that this is probably, I don't think that they were explicitly thinking about this at the time, but Jimmy Stewart, I was reading about him, and he was very much opposed to the colorization of black and white films.
Mm-hmm.
And he just felt like it was an assault on the art, which it was.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, there was also Steven Spielberg swapped out all the guns in E.T. and replaced them with walkie-talkies. And so the issue there is you're going back, and frankly, that's what I remember somebody saying about George Lucas going back on Star Wars with the special editions, right, for the original trilogies. He goes, look, he came up with a bunch of films, he released them. You don't go back and retroactively change art. Where do you stop? And for what reason? Like, where's the limits? When something's done, you leave it alone. You don't continue changing it, because you can change it for whatever reason you want then. And also other people can change it for whatever they want. For example, what's to stop them from going through classical literature? This just occurred to me on the spot right now. What's to stop them from going through classical literature and changing stuff that they don't like and then releasing that? The only way for you to know the difference between what it used to be and what it is to have a copy of that book in the physical form that existed before a certain point.
Right. And they need to send firemen around to collect all those books and burn them. That way you can't do that.
Right. We've all got to be equal, Montag.
Yes.
Let's burn all the books.
Well, and
the books.
And the thing is, Jimmy Stewart's absolutely right, because the films that were shot in black and white were done so purposefully. They knew that was the film stock they were using, and the directors and cinematographers lit things and shot things specifically for that medium to get certain looks. And when you colorize them, when you run them to the computer and digitalize and update them, you change a lot of the artistry and the unique vision that cinematographer and that director had. And in the case of what Lucas did, the whole thing with the Han shot first, I know that's like a meme and all the other kind of stuff, and fanboys rant on it. But the truth of that is, Han Solo went from a guy who shot first. He knew he was in danger. He shot first to get himself out there because taking care of number one is what you do. I protect my hide. At the end of the movie, he risked his life. He risked his reward to save somebody else. That is called character development. And in the original Star Wars, apparently that was completely accidental on George Lucas's part. Because when he changed that, because Han Solo's a good guy, and good guys don't shoot first, they shoot after they're shot at.
Well, that doesn't make any, frankly, like his argument and the argument of other people doesn't make any sense, because Greedo pointed a gun at him and had a gun pointed at him the whole time. I'm sorry, but this idea that you can't shoot someone who's got a gun pointed at you who could shoot you at any moment, what? Like this is where there's this this is where George Lucas cultivated unintentionally this image of being this genius on stuff. And when he went back to edit stuff, it revealed how little he understood his own creation in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. Well, the mystique of George Lucas, it was mostly in the heads of the fan, including myself. I will absolutely admit that, because I was 9 when Star Wars came out, and I saw it for the first time in 1977. So, yeah, that was all happy accident. As an adult looking back over his movies, I would say his best work was American Graffiti, and it's all been downhill since then. And because that one was the best as far as story, beginning, middle, end, well shot, well put together, well edited, good pacing, everything else. That was a good little movie. That was a good George Lucas movie. Star Wars, happy accident. He hit a lot of the right notes, even though guys like Harlan Ellison absolutely hated it. And I remember like him and Mark Hamill arguing in like the pages of Starlog over it. But that was right after American Graffiti. So
it would have been interesting. Yeah, it would have been an interesting sit down to listen to those two fuckers.
Oh, listening to Harlan Ellison go off against anybody is always delightful. I'm glad there are videos of him up on YouTube.
Oh, go ahead.
And then Empire, which arguably is a better movie than Star Wars. Absolutely. George didn't really have as much to do with.
He didn't write the script for that.
He also didn't direct it.
Right.
No, a female had a huge hand in writing that script, believe it or not.
So between Leigh Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan doing the script, Leigh Brackett writing the script, Lawrence Kasdan polishing it up, and then Irving Kershner directing it. You got a great movie, and that's because George didn't have as much to do with it. And the thing is, the whole George is a genius thing is myth when you look at the fact that, well, I've always had these plotted out and I always knew how
he had a good team. George Lucas had a good team around him.
Yes. Well, and he had someone back then who would tell him no. And with the new movies, he didn't have anyone to tell him no. But the fact that you have Luke and Leia kissing. There was the whole love triangle with Han from Star Wars to Empire. There was an even more romantic scene with Luke kissing Leia in Empire that was cut from the movie, means that they weren't brother and sister. He just felt compelled to answer these questions. And the thing is, he should have either answered them differently, or better yet, not answered them at all.
Left it alone.
Because, that's what's so funny is like how those films have a lot of plot loopholes or just inconsistencies that we just overlooked. Like I remember watching them as a kid, and it just never occurred. It never occurred to me that was going to be an issue. But
we filled them in for him with our own imaginations and arguing amongst ourselves on the weekends and at Pizza Hut, and
I think they didn't.
Over D&D games.
I think the reason is they didn't. It was so understated in Return of the Jedi. Like that revelation was so understated, and they just moved on. It was like, oh, like this isn't some. Frankly, it's kind of a comparison would be the Back to the Future thing, which is, I mean, if you think it never occurred to me ever until I got into my 30s. But like, this is a film about a kid who goes back in time and his mom has a crush on it. But the thing is, the way the film
totally Oedipal.
Right, but the thing is that the film doesn't do it in a kind of dark way. It's like she does it. It's portraying it in a very innocent way. Like she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with Luke and Leia.
It's completely mischievous and fun. It's
Right.
nothing.
And it's also done in a funny way. Like he's like, you. It's like.
But even when she kisses Marty, she's like,
"This is wrong."
Like, it's like kissing my brother or something. So, which is very different than Leia telling, I'm his sister. I've always known. Really, you always, I've been in the hospital before, and I don't remember my sister ever like slipping me the tongue as I'm laying in the bed recovering, Leia.
Right.
So
I think that's also the thing about George Lucas is that in a lot of ways he was good at being the executive kind of overhead guy. He came up with the general ideas, but his work was always done better in the hands of other people, and that includes the novels that were written.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, the novels, a lot.
Alan Dean Foster.
Yeah,
Alan Dean Foster, R.A. Salvatore when he killed Chewbacca.
Yeah, man, that was notorious. I remember when I got that book. I was like,
but it took a planet to do it. They had to slam a planet or a moon down.
I couldn't think of anyone better to write that too. R.A. Salvatore is the famous with the Forgotten Realms Driss novels. But that was good stuff.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of goes back to the issue of what we were talking about is the destruction of the language and changing stuff and why you don't touch things. But George Lucas revealed that one of the reasons you don't touch it, we were just discussing it for the last how many minutes, is that it destroys the aura and a person can build up about themselves. You live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I think that that's what happened with George Lucas is that he could have just sat back and let other people do the stuff that he's not good at. He's not the greatest director. He's not the greatest script writer. He was good at coming up with concepts. Like he came up with Indiana Jones. And I think that was the first movie was great. And, he bungled the second one, but the whole thing is that you have other people, when to step back. A good gambler knows when his luck has run out, and also realize when you don't understand some people will write a book or they'll come up with some sort of a movie or whatever, and it's really popular and they don't know how to replicate it because they don't really fully understand what they did. They're not fully aware of it. They kind of struck gold, or they what's that word, the term to like where
it's like a Bob Ross. They had a fucking happy accident.
They're capturing lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Like something happened and they don't understand why. And so they can't replicate it. It's like somebody who writes a great novel but they don't know why it was so popular. And so they spend the rest of their life trying to replicate it. They don't know why. It's like, no, dude, like just acknowledge you don't know and move on and do something else.
There's that.
Yeah. Well,
see?
Definitely whatever. George may have become a villain for what he did with the special editions and especially those prequel movies. But whatever hit his reputation took, Disney's taking care of that for him.
It can be, yeah.
One thing I will defend George Lucas on is that when he came up, the prequels for whatever flaws and whatever failings they had, he was not just trying to rely on nostalgia. He was genuinely trying to come up with something different.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely something new and different.
Right. He was trying to be different with what he was doing, and he wasn't just trying to rely on like some of these.
Well, the key thing here is he had a good story.
Right. He had. I think he
classic.
Frankly, I think he bungled a lot of that stuff even as a kid. Like with those movies, we all were wanting the prequels to come out, and we had all kind of made up our own movies. And none of our movies that we visualized came out. And frankly, all of ours as 9-year-olds were better than, or however old you were.
Key thing here, TJ, is we didn't go ahead and put it into implementation. He did.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, like,
it was his to do.
we're here. Yeah, we're here talking about it, but
well, he
Well,
had the money to do it. It's like
Yeah.
if I'd had $1 billion, I'd make. I mean,
but
if he gave me the money, I'd make a. I totally think Shadows of the
That's what-
Empire. Shadows of the Empire would make a great. Since it's owned by Disney, okay, do a Disney Plus version of Shadows of the Empire. I think it could be done really well. Just follow the book. Don't try to, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just follow.
I
the
agree
book.
with you there. Yeah.
yeah, and with the prequels,
Yeah.
they at least looked pretty, and aesthetically they were interesting, and in a way, really kind of made sense because when you look at Star Wars, it's dirty, it's grungy, it's kind of blocky. It's definitely a lived-in world. The time before that, during the Republic, things are shiny and bright and new, and the ships are chromed and have fins. So it's like he's enough of a car geek in his youth
You could
that
tell.
he could tell that, okay, in the time when
American
everyone
Graffiti.
kids, yeah, you have that 50s, 60s, early 60s car aesthetic for the spaceships. By the time you get to Star Wars, which was done in the 70s, things have that 70s look,
Kind of went backwards.
yeah, a 70s muscle car. So with the original movies, we have 70s muscles cars. So by the time we go earlier than that, we're going to have things with chrome and fins and, yellows and reds and all these cool, bright colors and everything like that. And that kind of stuff I thought was really cool. And I thought was really neat and interesting. And I could appreciate that aesthetically. And yes, it was something new. It was something different. Whereas the first prequel movie is basically the plot of Star Wars redone with affirmative action casting and dumbed down significantly to play to modern audiences. And then I don't know what the other two movies are because the first one was so disappointing that I have never seen the other two sequel movies to this very day. I just haven't. I won't because it was pointless to me. The way they treated Han Solo was so disrespectful that
that was like pulling a rug out from under the fans.
Well, yeah, and I think
it was just completely.
I mean, that's the thing. I think with the prequels is that he wasn't relying on nostalgia. He also wasn't trying to deconstruct the Star Wars films.
No.
Yeah.
But the new sequels, it's all about deconstruction. It's all about deconstruction, the hero's tale and the hero's journey. And that's why you have Rey, who is perfect because she's female, and all females are perfect because they are born female.
You just start off perfect. Oh,
yeah,
God.
They just are. Their farts smell like roses.
Make me want to vomit.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did. And it's for the generation of 30-year-old, cat mom, box wine, fanfic writers on Tumblr. And that's who the movies were made for. And I'm sorry, I'm not one of those, nor would I have sex with one of those, even when they offer. And they have. And
talk about emasculating.
It's like, I'm sorry, you've got panties on the floor and your house smells like cat piss. No, I've got more respect for my penis than this. So,
right.
And that's just how it is. So,
yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Sorry, TJ. I hated to go there, but I just
thanks for those images, Robert.
You guys get me wound up. It's like the end of Sin of a Woman. I'm not finished yet. Take a flamethrower this place.
Yeah. I think that this goes back to what we were talking about earlier is that the people who have these kind of mindsets, they make such crappy art and they tell such crappy stories because stories that people are interested in involve someone overcoming adversity through perseverance or strength or courage, bravery, resourcefulness, whatever qualities that normal people find appealing. And the problem is they're drawn to stories where someone just is. And an example that
they're not even stories. I mean, that's just, you're giving them credit.
I guess I never liked the Harry Potter films. And one of the reasons I didn't, and I couldn't quite put a finger on it, is because it's a film series about a protagonist that is like he's special because something happened to him rather than him doing something. Like he didn't kill Voldemort. Voldemort was a dumbass who cast a spell and it got deflected off on his
Voldemort, you dumbass.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's like,
Really?
It's kind of like you accidentally kill someone and you suddenly become a hero. It's like, no, I remember watching this stuff as a kid. I never read the books. But they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's this guy! It's this guy!" It's like he didn't storm Omaha Beach. He didn't like raise the flag at Iwo Jima. He didn't serve in
he lived under a fucking staircase.
Yeah, he lived under a staircase and let his foster parents or his aunt and uncle slap him around like a little twit. So like, what is there to admire about that? Oh, because he was the guy. He didn't even kill anybody.
Yeah.
So it bothers. But the thing is, that kind of character has appealed to people who just want to consider themselves valued because of what happened to them.
It comes back to what I was mentioning before and what we were talking about. It's that unearned entitlement.
Yeah, he was born the chosen one.
Yeah, complete unearned entitlement.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not surprising to me that was written by a female author, because there are very few who do men even remotely well, or understand us or understand our relationships. And I was trying to think. I have very mixed feelings for S.C. Hinton's The Outsiders. It was one of those books I had to read in junior high. Obviously, we even went on a field trip to see the movie because the movie came out in '83, and right around the time that we were reading the book. And there are definitely aspects of it I like. You can tell that she was writing about boys that she was around, but you could also tell that she was softening the edges of certain aspects of boys. So it's one of those things that, Red Pill Book Club reading The Outsiders, and it's like tearing it apart. But there was a time, Lee Brackett, since we mentioned her with Empire, wrote Rio Bravo, one of the best Howard Hawks movies. The movie, probably the one story in movie that made not only Howard Hawks very impressive career, all the more impressive, but made the career of John Carpenter, decades later. There's a movie about guys and about the relationship of men between Dean Martin and John Wayne. And there was a time, I think, when the aspects of masculinity and being male wasn't considered so verboten, that even if women didn't completely understand it from observation, they knew certain things at least. And so certain very obviously talented writers could capture that in a way. Whereas now, you have the generation of female writers writing either about things or actually writing things, and everything is a self-insert for themselves, completely from the feminine perspective, so that even if there are male characters in it, and even if, God forbid, they can be something of a protagonist and not the actual villain in the story, they are still very much written like, somewhat defective females. And so, we have a generation of men that don't even understand what being a man is or what they should do, raised by single mothers who are single mothers by choice, by bad choices on their part more often than not. And, a generation of women who are being taught by women who don't have men in their lives and couldn't get men in their lives, that you shouldn't want a man in your life, and men are bad and men are evil, and you're much happier with your cat and your box wine. Get your career. But yet they want them to be like what they think men are, as far as, well, you've got to work a man's job and man's hours and demand.
Well, it's easier.
Yeah.
They're at that point. They're easily led consumers.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, and to
end of the day, it's the bottom dollar that reigns.
Well, yeah, because when you have two income households, you have more money to spend on goods, and what businesses don't want you spending your money on their goods?
Exactly.
Although, from the looks of the things Hollywood's been producing lately, obviously they don't want my money.
Pieces of trash.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's ultimately the market's going to decide. I mean, we bring this back around to gaming and whatnot. I mean, this kind of shit was going on in Dragon magazine back in the 80s. I have it printed out right here. It was from 1983 or 84, maybe even 1980, volume 5, number 1. And the title is Women Want Equality and Why Not? And there's a follow-up article, Points to Ponder. As a female player of Dungeons & Dragons, there's one thing that never fails to annoy me. The underestimation of the abilities of female fighters. And both of these articles are just, it's vomit-inducing. It's just, I'll post a link to it because it's free. You can get it. It's PDF'd.
Right.
And just read it and just, yeah.
Yeah, there are still girls that go on about the fact that, what do you mean I can't have an 18th strength? It's like simple, because you can't.
Yeah.
If
you find a hat of ogre strength or bracers of whatever, sure.
Well,
But without magical augmentation, you physically were not going to have a 18 or 19 strength. Sorry.
Well, I'm like trying to think. I'm not sure that there's a woman in the Olympics right now that could take me in a fight. Although, like the female hammer tosser, God, if she got a couple licks in, it might hurt, and I might have to be careful with her. But I mean, female gymnast is going to take me in a fight? No. One of those female soccer players, they can't even beat 15-year-old boys at soccer.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
This is what's going to be interesting to watch is, as the whole tranny thing occurs and the the complete destruction of like women's stuff. It's not women's anymore. It's like you can't even call them women, like mothers. It's birthing people, but it's going to completely destroy their sports. So when they demand equal pay, the inevitable conclusion is going to be, well, we're just going to get rid of gender segregated sports, and we're all going to compete on the same level because equality. So what are you going to do? It's all about rhetoric. Like, what is Megan? What purple haired lady, HR lady? What is she going to say when they say we should get rid of women's soccer and men's soccer and just have tryouts where anybody can join if you're good enough? Like, what is she going to say?
Yeah.
Suddenly she's going to turn into a TradCon, and she'll be speaking at Turning Point USA, and right. she'll become a conservative.
Yeah,
deal. Maybe he's a Republican.
Well, it's like when I hear Kobe Bryant talking about oppression and stuff. I wish I was as oppressed as Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or any of those people.
These fucking. Money
any of those friends of China
shit.
The red Chinese detected on American soil.
Yeah,
pretty much. Stupid bullshit.
Yeah.
All right, keep talking. I'm gonna take a piss.
Okay.
Yeah, LeBron James is bought and paid for by the Chinese. We all know that.
Well, yeah, and it's funny how all these Marxist athletes and stuff think that if they're not going to be up against the wall with anybody else,
nobody in China not that I know of, but nobody in China watches the NBA. It's all a bunch of people in America, and guess what? We're not watching basketball, we're not watching baseball, we're not watching football anymore. Like they are completely destroying our national pastimes.
Well, that's what locusts do. It's just the same way they destroy, have done their best to destroy gaming and fandom and comic books and movies and sport. It's what they do. When you can't create something and your covetous, envious little heart can't stand that you can't create something because you're this narcissist with this sense of entitlement, well, then your only other option is to destroy it. It's like that quote from Dune. He who can destroy a thing controls a thing. And that's what they do. And they work very hard about destroying things. The locust doesn't care about the sanctity of something. They only care about their next meal. One of the few times I probably said something worthy on Twitter, where I mostly just talk to Japanese geeks and nerds, and occasionally some other random guys like Nick and, you and
Right.
Vince and stuff, because, which is a whole unintended consequence of my being on Twitter was talking with you guys. But yeah, sports, there's no doubt sports has taken a huge hit, but it's not been enough of a hit to affect them because they're not changing their ways. They're not changing their policies. Nike has come out and said they're a Chinese company, basically. So they're all about, making money off slave labor in China while charging $300 for a pair of Air athlete shoes. It's just what they do. And they have no desire or no intention of changing. And, just the same way with Gillette coming out and telling us to be better men. Well, I am a better man. I don't use their products to shave my friggin' face.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah. It's just how it is. Of course, I think Nick would have me get a razor from somewhere else. Where is that
You
place?
should get that from Lazarus Razors.
Lazarus Razors. There you go.
That's right. I have one, and I've been shaving with a safety razor for almost a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I have to use a throwaway is when I travel, because I don't check my bag, so they frown upon safety razors from TSA. But it's weird; they're not consistent. It depends on what airport you're flying through. So it's like, come on, really? Just if you're going to have these rules, have them across the board. That's fine. No problem with that. But fuck.
I flew to all over the United States and Germany and back with a small bottle of mouthwash that the TSA finally made me throw away when there was only about a quarter of a bottle.
And you were probably in the United States on the East Coast.
Yeah, I was. I think I was in Atlanta, flying out of Atlanta. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay, yes, that bottle is the larger ounce amount, but if you look in it, there's not that much liquid in it. So obviously,
you're like, I'm not blowing up anything with this.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I'm sorry.
Can't even start a small fire.
And it's like, do you realize, I should have had this bottle checked with my passport, that way you could see all the places I've gone with this bottle of mouthwash. But yeah, they're very, very inconsistent and it's all arbitrary, but it's government. Government is arbitrary and inconsistent, which is why people that want more government in everything absolutely baffles me. Going to the doctor is bad enough. And going to the license branch is worse. I don't want going to the doctor to be like going to the license branch. I don't want going to the grocery store to be like going to the license branch.
Indeed.
If I want a bottle of bourbon and a gallon of milk, then it should be as simple as that.
I agree. All right, we're coming up on the hour and 15-minute mark, almost 15 minutes that we've been broadcasting. And I did want to keep this somewhat short. So is there anything else you want to discuss? Anything you want to talk about? Any projects you're working on or upcoming trips or anything fun and interesting? Not that we haven't been talking about anything interesting, but more personal.
Nope, still working on some of the same projects, not looking at adding too much more to the plate at the moment. Although there are a few things I would like to do. but I'm just kind of waiting and seeing how some other things turn out before I add anything more. Definitely enjoying this, going through some old fanzines. I've actually got a bunch of sci-fi fanzines from Scotland that I was bagging up.
You have to do a Geek Intel next time you're on.
Yeah, I might do something like that. Of course, hopefully I won't get on another, what was it, 33-minute rant? Is that what Nick was saying?
Yeah. No, it's cool. We're busting your balls, but it's all good.
Oh no, that's how you know you're a part of the group.
You long-winded son of a bitch.
I am. You just get me wound up, and I will.
You and TJ do all the work for me. I just sit back and enjoy the conversation.
Well, hopefully we keep it interesting for you, and
absolutely.
more importantly to the audience. Although since it's your channel, it should only be most important to you.
No, you guys, talk away. I'm fine with it.
No, but looking forward to the game. Although, God, I don't know what eldritch horror we're going to be dealing with in Rollo's campaign.
That brings us to the game. We are continuing the Rollo's campaign next Wednesday. He is traveling this week, which is why we're not playing today, which we thought we were going to. So that will be next Wednesday, and then Drew had some family business to take care of. So we will be getting his campaign up and running probably sometime in August. If I was to hazard a guess, I would say sometime to mid to late August.
With character creation.
We'll do. Episode. Yeah, our first episode we'll be doing live character creation, because I know quite a few people have asked about that, as far as like, hey, how does that work? What's this D&D thing? So you get to see us rolling the dice live and actually character creating live, which will also help TJ too, because I know TJ hasn't played or run a character in first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So,
what's the first edition you've played, TJ?
This one.
Yeah, really?
This one.
Yeah. Wow. TJ started playing D&D with us. We ran a game. I DM'd a game, weekend long game in Gettysburg in 2018.
Yeah.
Battlefield Gathering. Yeah. And he liked it, so he's now a D&D devotee.
Was Aaron a part of that?
Aaron was a part of that. Yeah,
amazingly.
I have that on. In fact, I have a photo of that somewhere. I'll tweet that shit out. Competent man, character creation. So it won't take 8 to 12 hours. No, those were fun when you're sitting around with your buddies and you're character creating. You're coming up with a little bit of a backstory, a couple paragraphs, nothing too major, but you're fleshing out your character, and then the DM is giving you, depending upon your level, the DM is handing out maybe 1 or 2 magic items. We'll be starting at 5th level, so we'll do our base character at first, and then advance it each level and go through the extra stuff that we gain per level, spell slots and extra to hit. And I need to ask Drew if we're going to be using Thaco to hit armor class 0 as far as rolling hits, which I like. I always liked Thaco.
I would imagine so, because it's my understanding it's supposed to be a more or less strict first edition game.
That's what I want. That's what I asked Drew to run, is a straight up strict first edition. Now Raul is doing a hybrid.
Right.
We've rolled up 5e characters, but for the most part the rules are first edition, and he just augments them to fit our 5e character framework. So I'm enjoying that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But we're going back, and Raul is running the A1, the old tournament modules from 1980, A1 through A4, with A1 being Slave Pits of the Undercity. I forget what this one is called, but they're fun, and I'm enjoying them, and I like doing them live, and people seem to be very receptive to them as well. So that'll be good. But that will be next Wednesday, yes. Yeah. So TJ, what are you up to? What are you doing?
Other than
being quiet.
Well, that, and other than changing addresses.
That's right. Yeah.
I'd say I'm editing a book, sequel to a book that's going to be published by Terra House Press, and I've kind of run it into a rough spot because this is part of the book where I wrote the book 10 years ago. So
Yeah, that's right. You told me about that. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, this is the part where
you really have to flesh it out differently now.
Well, no, it's like I read this part. I was like, this is the part where
that's not gonna work.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, deleted.
That doesn't fit my mindset now. Yeah.
Okay. What's happened in the last 10 years that would have affected you so, TJ?
Gee, I don't know.
Better writer. I know what I was reading completely different. I was reading old books back then that the writing is not. It's either not relevant or it's just not. It just wasn't good. It was. Just because books are old doesn't mean the writing's great. Like
that's true.
Like Charles Dickens, people love Charles Dickens.
I cannot. It's Nicholas Nickleby. I actually liked, even though it was a fucking brick. But Dickens, yeah, TJ Dickens is a fucking rough writer.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I read Oliver Twist and I read Great Expectations, and those were the books that I could actually follow. The rest of the ones I tried to read, it was like
pulling teeth.
In the name of God is going on here?
Even Christmas Carol, which is
Christmas
really
Carol,
short.
It's not Our Mutual Friend, which was like a 900-page tome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking more of like I was also reading Leo Tolstoy. Who wrote like completely unnecessarily long novels and other stuff like that. And
but who doesn't want to spend a weekend reading War and Peace?
I have never read that novel. And you know what? Fuck that. I'm not going to. Or maybe I'll get the fucking Cliff Notes.
Well, here's the thing. Those are books, classical literature, that it is appropriate to abridge them because there's parts of it where nobody cares.
Did they ever turn that into a movie, War and Peace?
Yes, they did.
Okay. I'm not watching that either. I'm going to pull an Aaron Clary.
Well, no, you can. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm just saying, like the movies, they tend to like Dr. Zhivago. They condensed a lot of the stuff down.
Oh, it was good. Yeah,
they did the same thing with the Les Mis film.
Yeah, Jules Verne, absolutely. 10,000 Leagues.
Well, yeah, but Jules Verne. I'm sorry, no, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That's a very unreadable book, in my opinion.
Really, I thought I enjoyed it.
I read the abridged version. It was much more readable, and the film was infinitely superior in terms of its story structure.
Well, I love the Disney film. That was so
the Disney
great.
film. Yeah, I was about to say the Disney
with Kirk
film
Douglas.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Speaking of authors, did you guys hear that William F. Nolan, the author of Logan's Run, passed away?
Oh shit!
Yeah,
I did not.
He passed away on the 15th. He was 93 years old.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. But I love Logan's Run, although the movie's very different. But the movie is still wonderful, and Michael York's great in it, and Jenny Agutter is very pleasant to look at in it. And God, what more do you need in a movie? An interesting hero and someone nice to look at.
Exactly. I'll say this. Mictobus, Nick likes Melville. Quintus Curious likes Melville. A lot of people are not overly fond of the classics because I've heard this complaint that they're, even with Tolkien, they're too descriptive. Well, let's look at it this way, and I've said this before. There was no internet and huge access to libraries, so long descriptions were really fucking necessary. I mean, let's put it this way: when people were reading Melville, how many of those people reading that fucking book knew what a whale looked like? Probably not many.
No,
you don't have this instant description. Like even with dragons, with Tolkien, did most people know what a dragon? I mean, they had an idea, maybe like the Chinese dragon or something like that, but they really have an idea what a dragon looked like. So the descriptions were, to my mind, in my theory, they're very necessary. Not so much now because we can just grab our phone and look something up and go, oh, that's what that looks like. That's what this is. Like orc. The same thing with orc. The fuck is an orc? Who knows what an orc was? That's why these long descriptions, like even Umberto Eco in The Name of the Rose. I mentioned this before. Like he'll go on and describe a fucking door for about 11 pages. Yeah. Everyone knows what the door is, but his literary flow was such that it worked for him and in that context. But for the most part, like with Melville, even to some extent, some of the stuff with Dickens, but Melville, Tolkien, nobody knew what these things look like. Even some of the nautical terms with the ships, they didn't know. It's like everybody was sailing on ships.
Well, I mean, if you were a kid living on a farm and were lucky enough to get a copy of Moby Dick,
out in like Pump Handle, Iowa.
The only ship you've maybe ever seen was like the rowboat you and Jim Bob take out to, try to catch a catfish,
Exactly, yeah. So you needed that description of that ship, like with the Master and Commander series, Patrick O'Brien. Patrick O'Brien. They're if you want to learn great writing, great dialogue, but if you want to learn about the nautical life and the workings of ships and the names and the nomenclature, read Patrick O'Brien's series. Yes.
Yeah, and if you really got a hankering for going back though, and just having a good yarn, go back to the Horatio Hornblower stuff, which I absolutely
did. The BBC do a series of that back in like the 80s?
Yeah, they did a brief series of that in the 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and which are pretty good, although slightly different. And then of course there's the classic movie version as well, which is also really entertaining. Which is actually one of the later books. The later books were. The later book was written to do the movie, and then he went back and wrote other stuff for it, which I recommend his stuff. I recommend Raphael Sabatini as far as like Captain Blood and Seahawk, both of which were turned into Errol Flynn movies, although the Seahawk is a very different book than the Errol Flynn movie. As far as modern stuff, Bernard Cornwell's historic fiction, Viking, Sharp's Rifles, the Starbucks stuff during the Civil War, any of his stuff is really, really good reading. And I actually really like Robert Jordan, who is a long-winded bastard that writes the
fucking Wheel of Time.
Yes, which is being adapted for an Amazon series, and I've got a feeling that's going to be woke as hell. But
you're going to ruin it the same way they're going to destroy Tolkien stuff.
Yeah, but so yeah, obviously I'm rather partial to long-winded descriptive bastards.
You don't say.
Yeah, imagine that. What are the chances?
Where did we ever get that idea from? Jesus.
So and then Robert Howard, who's not particularly long-winded, but I love his
descriptions. They flow so well.
Yeah,
he still has that pulp style that he was when he was.
That's almost poetic.
Exactly. Good word. Very, very true. Very true. His stuff is very poetic.
And then, have any of you guys read any of the Saint novels?
I have not. No.
Okay, those are kind of interesting.
Okay.
I really like the characters. So, but it's anytime you go back.
Didn't
with
Val
some of that
Kilmer
older
play the
stuff,
Saint too?
Yes, but that's so different from the character in the book.
Okay.
But it was still a fun movie, and Elizabeth Shue's nice to look at. So,
always.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that
you are a nerd, Sass. Jesus Christ. No, that's cool. I'm sure it's enjoyable. I haven't seen this. I watched it on TV when it came out, but I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah,
those back and pick that up.
Those are good, and also the Sharps books. Some of them have been adapted to TV movies as well. So and maybe one day we'll teach Aaron how to read.
No, fuck that, and we'll never hear the end of his shit.
Aaron,
although, can you imagine doing? Oh, I'm sorry, TJ. Go ahead.
You have to do the audiobook version. He will not read it. He will not sit down and read it. He will listen to it. He will listen to it while he's hiking.
I want the Cappy version of the abridged War and Peace. Can you imagine that?
I want Aaron to go on vacation and then not be online for 2 weeks. That's what I want. That's actually him say to actually do something he says he's going to do. That's what I want.
You have great expectations.
I do. It's just not going to happen. I know. I'm spitting into the wind. All right, we'll wrap this up. Oh, and as far as what I've been doing, I'm finishing up, and if Nick is listening, he'll appreciate what I'm about to say. And I talked about this before we started broadcasting. I finished up chapter 8. Well, actually, not really. I still have a little bit more to write. I'm on a roll. Chapter 8 for my pulp detective fiction on Punch Riot, Laser Dicks, featuring Rob, TJ, and myself as characters. Chapter 8 is over 3,000 words, and I don't think Nick is going to want to publish 3,000 words for a chapter, so I have to pare that down, take about 1,000 words of that, maybe a little less, and throw that into chapter 9 and keep on writing this weekend. And hopefully, I'm thinking I'll wrap up with 10, maybe 12 chapters, and then that book. Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure. Aaron was a brief. I'm glad you caught that, McDivus, that with Rob's comment. Because I had that poll that I put out, like which personality you want to see in the next chapter of Laserdiscs, and Aaron won, so I put him in there briefly. I think I'm going to have us all go. We have to go back to that nightclub for some reason to get information. We'll see. That'll be entertaining to write at the very least. Then maybe make it in towards the end, which I'm rapidly coming to. So when that's done being serialized in Punch Riot, which I all suggest you go sign up and become a patron for Punch Riot. You're going to get stuff from myself and TJ and many other great authors. And it's only, I think, $5. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. If you're still in the chat, that's $5, right? I don't know. Go to punchriot.com and figure it out. You're all smart kids. You'll get it. So when that is done, I will be turning that into a novella series as well, and that will be turned into book form. So I need TJ and I have been discussing how the cover needs to look. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'll be doing this weekend, finishing that up. I'm glad you guys are enjoying reading that, the ones that are current subscribers to Punch Riot. As I said, if you're not, get over there and sign up. If you're just on Twitter, retweeting and liking a Punch Riot tweet, knock that shit off. Tweets and retweets do not help the author, do not help the producer of their work. I mean, that's nice, and it gives us a little bit of a charge, but go support the work. Go buy the work. And also, more importantly, leave a goddamn review.
Amen.
A couple stars and 1 word, 2 words, 3 words. I liked it. This is good. That's all you have to do. Given the amount of shit that you do on a daily basis, that's probably not important. Let's face it. There's a lot of stuff we do that's really not important. Add that into things that are important by getting rid of the unimportant shit. So go buy the work, support the work, and leave a fucking review. Fuck. Anyway, that's my rant. That's my being brief. How are you, James? You want to tell everyone why you're not here tonight? I'm going to put you on the spot. Why are you not here tonight? You are a masculine geek. You are on the panel. You are in the chat. You're sandbagging. Why are you sandbagging?
Yeah, Bupkis for showing up.
That's Bupkis in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Let's have it, James. What's going on over there? Voice? Oh, okay. Well, that's true. Since we're not doing video and the voice is the all-important thing right now, your voice is the main attraction. So, yes, fix your voice, rest your voice, and be ready for... Well, you're going to have 2 weeks because next Wednesday is the D&D games. You don't have to worry about showing up for that. Anyway, so look for Chapter 8 of Laserdiscs next month. I think you'll enjoy it. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of stuff going on. Well, you could absolutely write down what you wanted to say and hold it up to the camera. That'd be kind of tedious, and we'd be here for 3 hours. So never mind. Yeah. We're not doing that. Shit out of luck. But heal your voice up there, my brother. All right, so we are going to call tonight. It is now 1 hour and 34 minutes. We've been broadcasting. This has been fun. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
So let's do our normal housekeeping. Robert, where can everyone find you?
On YouTube, Robert Kuzlin, and on Twitter and Instagram at Robert Kuzlin. So basically look for Robert Kuzlin and you'll either find me or someone impersonating me. So as simple as that.
Right.
And of course, here with the Masculine Geeks.
Yes. And we're glad, and it's an honor to have you, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. TJ, how about yourself?
You can find me at the local liquor store.
You're down there with Aaron getting some rum.
Just kidding.
I'm getting some boxes to move.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yep.
You can find me at TJ Martinell, MartinEll.com. Everything. Double L. Everything you could possibly want to know about me is there, or not, as the case may be. But yes, leave a review on my books if you buy them.
Yes, go buy them. Go buy mine, and I'll have another one out from the Tesla Malone series this October. Buy TJ's books. Leave reviews. I'm saying this again for the lead paint eaters and the people in the cheap seats. Leave reviews.
Nibnobblers.
Yeah, exactly. You knob nibblers. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I appreciate you liking and retweeting shit. That is great because I know you're paying attention. But if you're not actually buying the product, then it's not. No, I don't care. I just don't.
Here's the thing: if you're not buying Vince's book or mine, I don't want to hear. You better not be complaining about how there's not any good like entertainment or books or literature and all the social justice warriors taking over. Well, they're not taking over because Men Who Walk Alone and Tesla and Malone are out there. They're on the prowl, and you can amuse yourselves with some good, clean, wholesome, violent entertainment.
Exactly. And laser dicks it's like you want raw, gritty, pulp detective masculine writing. You want to be reading laser dicks. Mictibus can totally vouch for me because he reads it religiously and he loves it. So fuck.
Hey, can I say real quick? I do have one of TJ's books, which I haven't had a chance to read, but I will definitely leave it a review once I do. I may even submit a document dissecting it for you.
Nice.
My academic days. But also, I'll keep an eye out for Rogue Broadcast because that last Rogue Broadcast we did with Doc was really cool. I was very happy to be a part of that one. That was a really good show. For a non-scheduled show, it was particularly good. So well done, Vince, on that. Did we lose Vince?
Oh, his camera probably froze.
Yeah, okay. I froze up there for a second. Thank you.
He's probably cursing me
out. That happens all the time with Vince, by the way.
It does. It happens once per broadcast session.
Yeah, but usually I can see you're not moving. But
exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Mictibus. The second one is a little longer, and I think it's a little better than the first one. The first one's still good. Don't get me wrong. And Laserdix is good too. So it's been fun writing. So get your asses over there to punchriot.com and sign up for $5 measly, and you'll have access to all the awesome writing. So there you go. All right, we're going to call it a night. I'm getting tired. I have work in the morning. You guys have shit to do. Everyone listening has shit to do. So, although on TJ's side of the world, it's only, 7:47?
Yeah, it's like a Boeing airliner.
Right? Yeah. All right, cool. TJ, as always, take us out, please.
All right. Keep the fires burning, keep the wine flowing, keep the lead shooting down range. Don't take any wood nickels. All communists must be exterminated, and don't drink all the rum.